Hi, I'm Elizabeth, and welcome back to the Lenz, where I review books, movies, television shows, and web series that I love and want to share with you. So guys, we're back with a new full movie review of the latest film to come out, Bonhoeffer, Pastor, Spy, Assassin. I think it is. I think it's called that, right? Bonhoeffer is a 2024 historical drama thriller film about the German theologian and anti-Nazi dissident Dietrich Bonhoeffer, written, produced, and directed by Todd Komarnicki. This Todd Komarnicki also happened to produce Elf, like Will Ferrell Elf. Like, oh my gosh, it's Christmas, so everyone's gonna be watching Elf again and again and again. Oh my gosh. Anyways, in this case, he produced, directed, and wrote this movie. Okay, without further ado, we'll go into the review. I'll talk about what I liked, what I wasn't so into, and things that I think can improve or I found really interesting. Let's get into it. The first thing that I really liked was the captivating cinematography. Now, I remember faintly in my trailer reaction that I was kind of concerned about the coloring of this film. Please don't mind me. I don't know if I was tired that day or whatever, but you know, color plays a huge role in helping us to step into the world of the film. And in this case, from the first opening scenes, I realized, whoa, the coloring just fit the film exactly, fit the entire vibe, and I think also fit the seriousness of the subject matter. You can't have a bunch of vibrant colors all over the place when you're talking about Nazism, when you're talking about World War II, when you're talking about anti-Semitism. You can't have a bunch of that going all the time. You're trying to get people into the mood of what the film is trying to communicate to you, right? So coloring was intelligently done. It was beautiful. The cinematography was also really, really good. I loved the creativity. There were a lot of scenes in the beginning where you had flashbacks to a past moment in time and how Dietrich was, and then you would cut to a different scene where he'd be in the same position or be looking the exact same way or similar to how he was in the last shot of the last scene, and then the first shot of the next scene, it would kind of like overlap, and you would see the contrast and how he's feeling now in those present times or in the present time of the film versus how he was feeling back in the past. There's one scene, for example, where he's talking to his sister and they're kind of dreaming or just thinking, and he's in a good mood and he's just curled up on the bed, and he's just, you know, just talking to his sister. And then the very next scene, you see him curled up on the floor of a prison cell, shivering, tired, exhausted, you know, worried. You know what I'm trying to say? So that kind of contrast was really interesting to see, and you saw that over and over and over again. Eventually it stops, but it's really interesting to kind of see really the mood of the different scenes across different time periods or between different time periods. I also felt like whatever they did to the look of the film made it easier for you to pay attention to what was going on. And it was kind of weird to say, but when you watch the film, you just realize that there's always this, it's hard to explain, but when you're watching the film, you really get this sense that you do have this principal object to be looking at, and you're constantly being able to follow it. And there's a way that Bonhoeffer stands out from the rest of the scene that always commands your attention. It's really, really interesting. And I think that as well, I don't know if that was something that the director did intentionally or if it just happened to be that way, but it was really interesting seeing Bonhoeffer, and sorry, I don't want to make this sound like, you know, it's color against color, things like that, but it was interesting to me how you had Bonhoeffer that always stood out. And he always stood out almost as a unspoken symbol of exactly what the Nazis wanted to keep alive. But of course, he was constantly at odds with the Nazis all throughout the film. So when you're watching the film, he stands out as someone who doesn't just fit in. Like, he fits in, but he's just different. It's not just his ideology, it's also his entire look, his entire appearance. And I don't really know how to explain it, but I think it served the purposes of the film very well because Bonhoeffer was a different thinker. He was a different kind of person. So I don't know if it was intentional, but it was something that I definitely picked up on during the film. The second thing that I really liked about this film, you know me, I love words, I love when things make sense, and there were so many quotable quotes in this film, and I'm sure they got a chance to read his books and his writings and maybe pick and choose some quotes in there that kind of helped to move the stories forward or the story forward. But the quotes that they picked really fit in every scene, and they were very thought-provoking. This guy was a very, very wise guy. He was not a wise guy, but a very wise and intelligent individual. And the ideas and the concepts that he was coming up with, or that he was discovering and being able to bring to light, just amazing, just amazing. And there were so many moments in the film where I was just like, how do you think of these things and just bring them out of your mouth? Like, how?
Invasion. My country was invaded from within.
And it really makes you think as well about what they're actually saying. Like, you said it and it was powerful, but what does that actually mean, right? So I loved the quotes. One of the quotes that really got me was, bravery is a rare commodity, especially when you need it the most. You sit down and you think about, what does that really mean? In your own context, in your own community, what does that really mean? And how can you take the wisdom of that statement and make your life and the lives of people around you that much better? Like, do you understand what I'm trying to say? When people drop these gems, don't just look at them and say, oh, pretty. Think about them. Think about what could have made somebody get to the point that they could even say something like that. What have they been through? What have they lived through? You know what I mean? So just amazing, amazing work with the wisdom gems all over the place. Loved it, loved it, loved it. Another thing that I loved about this film were the really unsettling scenes where you knew someone was doing something that was really, really great, but was going to land them in a lot of trouble. And I don't know, it just shook me to the core. And I was just wondering, like, okay, what if I was living in 1940s Germany? What would I do? Would I support my pastor in saying some of the truths that he was saying? Would I echo them? Like, what would I do? You know, in North America, we've had the privilege of really not seeing a lot of persecution for our faith. So I can only imagine what the German church was going through and how they had to figure out a way to stand on their own 2 feet. Like, it's in times like these that you realize who actually is convicted and is given completely to the gospel, who actually really does love God and not just honor religion. You know, so that was a really big thing for me, just kind of thinking to myself, my goodness, they're doing such great work. They are telling the truth. They are putting what they believe before their safety, their loved ones, everything. Who does that? Like, who? I don't know. They were scenes that just really made me quake on my inside. The other thing that I loved about this film was the point of view of a man in Germany as a German and representing everything that the Nazis wanted to keep alive. You know, this Aryan race, these really intelligent people. Bonhoeffer was super, super intelligent, super smart. And being able to see World War II from their perspective, see how Germany was also being bombed, see how they were almost living, oh my gosh, in the veneer of safety. It's very, very interesting to kind of see that. And again, thank God for good people all over the world who decided to get into this war, and I can look back at it now as history, although some things are happening in the world still today, but I'm grateful that it's all history now. But just thinking about being in Germany, know that your country's at war with the whole world, with the great powers of the world. You're still walking around buying bread, buying cheese, like doing all these things. You're still acting as if the world intends to spin on, which it did, but Germany definitely changed after that. And it's just interesting to see how Germans in Germany were reacting. Some were resisting, some were not, and kind of just seeing their determination in doing this. Like, it was insightful to see that. You see a lot of these World War II movies, and they're usually from the perspective of somebody in the military or somebody in politics, or maybe like kids of people in the military or in politics, or usually sometimes from the perspective of Jews as well. And sometimes, most of the time, I don't think really in Germany, usually in one of the countries that the Nazis invaded. But to see this different perspective for me was really, in a weird way, refreshing, because I got to see something. I got to see it from a line that I'd always imagined, but I'd never really seen before. I'd never really researched before. So seeing that in a movie was really eye-opening. The last thing that I'll say I liked about this film was the clear distinction made between religion, dead religion, and a true relationship with God, real Christianity. And I loved it because it showed what dead religion does. You stand up for nothing. It's just a tradition for you, just something that I do. If they want to change my God, no problem. I'll just take it as it is. And true Christianity, a true relationship with God where you're like, I'm in safety, I'm in the US, I'm somewhere else, but I have to go in to fight this war. And that truly is the difference between just having a recipe to follow, things you're just doing for the sake of doing it, to look holy, to look pious, to follow the culture of the day, and really having conviction about who you are calling Lord. To see people that hold themselves to a particular standard and just kind of dropped it because times got hard, and people that held themselves to that same standard but did not drop simply because they believed in God and they had a relationship with God, as opposed to just going through the day-to-day activities. It reminded me of a scripture, like the scripture about us being salt and light as children of God. And a few years ago, one of the things that really stood out to me in that scripture was the fact that there is salt that is not salty and is not useful for anything but to be trampled underground. And it really hit me. So God, we can be salt still, but not salty. And that's how I see people that are children of God, but are not ready to stand up for what they believe in God. I'm not saying that we all need to be militant, about it. And there are ways that we go about it that's absolutely wrong and does not help the kingdom move forward at all. At the same time, it makes me look at myself and ask myself questions like, am I salt in this area but not salty? Am I preserving the values and the goodness of God in this area? Or am I not? Am I promoting evil and darkness and wickedness? How am I being salt and maintaining my saltiness in this area of my life? Because it's different areas, right? There are places in your life where it's a lot easier, your church life, and there are places in your life where it can be a bit harder, like your work life or wherever else you go. It can get a little bit interesting across different worlds. At the same time, it is important for us to maintain that saltiness. That does not mean having to convert everybody to Christianity, you meet, but it does mean having that difference. Where I work, I know that I'm different. And I know people around me know I am different. Then part of that saltiness is to allow the manifestations of the fruit of the Spirit to flow through you to other people. To the point that people realize that there's a difference in your walk and your talk. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? You are different. You make a difference. When you come into the room, something changes. Why? Because you're bringing God with you. Think about what salt does to food. It immediately elevates, especially if you're working in my company's cafeteria. Bring salt, small salt will help you. Okay. Small salt and pepper. You bring some salt and it elevates the whole dish. Sometimes it makes other elements even stand out more and brings that richness. That's what you do as salts of the earth. But if you have no saltiness, then what are you useful for? So this film really opened my eyes to assessing myself in different areas of my life and asking myself, am I keeping my saltiness? And not to now work myself to the bone to make sure that I keep it, but to allow God into that area of my life. Father, I don't know why I'm not leaning on you enough in this area or in this part of my life, but I've made my decision. I'm going to lean on you more. spend more time in your word, spend more time in prayer, whatever it is, to allow you to flow through me, to use me as a vessel unto honor in wherever I am. Does that make sense? So I loved that about this film as well. Things I did not like. Honestly, this list is not very long at all. But one of the things I did not like, although you know I love a good exposition, hey, I was kind of lost in all of the jumping back and forth, back and forth. I was like, guys, stay in one place. And I think as well, I was hoping that, I don't know why, but it almost felt like present day in the film shouldn't have been present day. I felt like I wanted to kind of watch him in movie real time from the middle of his journey and not have all of that part be flashbacks. I don't know if that makes sense, but I hope it does. The jumping back and forth was a little bit confusing. Not horribly, but there are some points where just like, okay, stop, relax. Keep going with the story from here. But there was a lot of like jumping here, jumping there kind of a thing. And I was like, bruh, maintain. But again, kind of a nitpicky thing for me. Maybe if I watch it again, I'll like all that. But for the first time watching it, I was like, bruh. Again, also, I was watching it after work. That might have also made me feel like, zoom through. So you never know. But that was one thing that I was like, not so excited about. The second thing that I really did not like, which I cannot even fault them for at all, was them not being able to share some really key parts of his story. I mean, they did a really fantastic job, and you can only say so much in 90 to 120 minutes. Like, you can only say so much, but I just felt like there was so much that was missing. I wanted to see so much more. I wanted to see them depict so many other things. I am so sure that there are some scenes that I had in my brain that ended up on the cutting room floor. I'm so sure. That is why in my next video, I'm going to talk about all of the things they did not say in the film about Bonhoeffer. Guys, this guy was an amazing, a very extraordinary person. And you really have to know about all of the things that they kind of had to leave out even before you watch the film, I think. For me, once a historical drama, I'm just like, I want to learn about the history. And then enjoy the film, like enjoy them retelling the story. So I don't know if you're like that. If you're like that, you'll like that next video. If you don't like that, don't worry, just watch the film. You like it, and you can come back to that video later on. But there was so many amazing things about Bonhoeffer. They couldn't even express properly, I don't feel like, on screen. Okay, so we're going to talk about that in my next video. Keep an eye out for that. And what I found interesting, or just very noteworthy, was the ending of the film. So spoiler alert for those that haven't watched it yet, but the ending was really poignant because it was like the director was knocking on the proverbial kitchen sink window of our consciences from the outside, looking in and telling us there is no happy ending, because the ending is still being written even today. And part of how it's going to end, part of that responsibility is in your hands. And they talked about a lot of things that went on and happened, and it almost ended on a lower note. Not the lowest note, but on a lower note, letting you know, I can't give you what you're looking for. I know you're looking for a tie up in a bow kind of scenario. You know, you want to hear about how the war was over, and they did talk about that, but it wasn't. But it was gifted in a very solemn package at the end of the film. It wasn't something to say, okay, Bonhoeffer lost his life, but, you know, all these great things happened. Yeah, some great things happened, but there's still work to be done. So it made me feel very quiet. I didn't talk for a very long time. I was surprised people actually left the theater as quickly as they did, because I was like, guys, that really hooked me. I just sat there for a few minutes just thinking, this is entertainment today, in a way. I'm into the entertainment industry, this film. But there was nothing funny or amusing or happy about the things that Bonhoeffer went through. All to put some spokes in the wheels of time and stop things from going in a direction that was going to destroy the world. It's amazing. Absolutely amazing. And rightfully so. anything I've reviewed over the last year have really made me look in a mirror and ask myself, what is going on? What am I doing with my life? Like, these people are doing such amazing, or they've done such amazing things, and how is my little bit of effort, how am I maximizing it? How am I taking my role wherever I'm at and really doing the best that I can? And it really made me think of this idea that he had about cheap grace. And although I'm very grateful for the grace of God that allows me to not have what I deserve, there is still a responsibility on me, not from the place of working to be approved by God, but from the place of working because I love him, to try to make the things around me and the things he's given into my hand better because God is at work in me. Does that make sense? So I think that sometimes we accept the grace of God, but when it comes down to when it's time to leave the lap of luxury, leave convenience, and go out there and do something in alignment with the love that you have for God, or let me say the love you should have for God, that's when you have this idea come up about cheap grace. Like, God has saved you. You don't get what you deserve. You get what Jesus deserves now. Yet, in this privileged state where you're seated above, you're not able to sacrifice for the betterment of people around you, the body of Christ. And I think that's kind of where the idea of cheap grace stems from, this frustration that these people that should be fighting for God's goodness to prevail are doing nothing. And truly, you come to this position where Bonhoeffer was absolutely right. Evil persists when good people do nothing. So do something. All right, that's all from me for my review of Bonhoeffer. Make sure you leave me a comment down below to tell me how much you loved or did not like or found interesting the film Bonhoeffer. You have to go see it in theaters. Don't wait for streaming. You have to see it in theaters because it's so good. And if you watched the film, please let me know some quotes that you found really inspiring or memorable. There was just a well of wisdom in this film, and I'm sure I didn't catch everything that was said, so let me know in the comment section down below, and I will see you in a new video. Bye.